Do you want to meet a ghost?
Do you want to meet a ghost?
Do you want to meet a ghost? Do you want to meet a ghost? I'm Emily.
And I'm Chelsea,
We're two lifelong horror fans.
here to discuss old favorites and discover new ones.
We summarize the whole movie.
Spoilers and all.
Do you want to meet a ghost?
Let's press play. Hello, everybody. So today we are discussing the movie Pulse from 2001, directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. I do want to note before we start, as always, we will be talking about everything that happens in the movie and all the spoilers, but also just a big note on this one. It does deal heavily with suicide, some of which is graphic, so we're just giving you that warning up front in case you want to shut this off. It is a very big part of the movie, and I just wanted to put that out there. I personally had not even heard of this movie, but I'm very glad it was recommended to me because I really enjoyed it. And then what is your experience with Pulse? Like, I think you said you've seen it multiple times.
Oh, yeah. I actually bought the digital copy because I like it
Nice.
so much. I went through this phase in high school where I was just watching a lot of horror movies, but I would break it down by either the decade or, okay, like, now I want to watch horror movies from the 70s, horror
Nice.
movies from the 80s. And I went through this phase where, like, I went through foreign horror movies and, in particular, Japanese horror movies. Oh my God, Chelsea, you're going to love this. The
Okay.
thing that got me into Japanese horror movies was the My Chemical Romance music video for Vampires Will Never Hurt You.
Oh my goodness. I love that.
Yeah.
So I remember that music video, and I remember they're like in a dark room and there's like black and white, but do they have clips of like Japanese horror movies in that? Or like what's the link there?
They use clips of this Japanese horror movie called Audition. That's
I
supposedly
never realized that.
And it's supposedly like very disturbing Japanese horror movie. And I watched it after that, and I was always into horror movies, but Japanese horror movies in particular from the early 2000s are just like, there's just something about them that I love. And Pulse is probably my favorite one out of what I've seen, just because it leaves me so utterly like empty feeling and like just destroyed. Just destroyed.
Oh, we love it. We love a good movie that makes us feel destroyed.
Yes. So, yeah, and I just thought the whole thing was really unique. I know they did a remake. Didn't they do an American remake in like 2006?
They did. I think like Ian Somerhalder's in it and stuff. I actually started watching it today just to start watching it. Like I got like 10 minutes in.
From what I remember, I think I might have blocked it out because it was so bad. But from what I remember, it's like nothing like the Japanese movie.
I think that, like I kind of said earlier, I think this is a story that like it's something that I feel like could not really be told outside of Japanese horror, and like it takes place in Tokyo. I just feel like it lends itself well to that story. Another thing I was thinking of, I'm 31. You're 30?
Mm-hmm.
So we were children around the time of Y2K. So I don't know if we were fully getting an understanding of it the way that, you know, anybody else around us was getting an understanding of it. But
yeah, this movie is definitely one for the Y2K kiddos.
and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but like, you know, there's a lot of dark stuff on the internet, and there was dark stuff on the internet when it was starting out, and you would be exposed to it at every turn. Like,
yeah, and at a super young and formative age.
Right, and I think that that's an experience kind of almost unique to our age group because
absolutely.
I kind of just feel this movie in a lot of ways.
It's so disturbing in a lot of ways, and I think it's disturbing in ways that maybe it wasn't even intended to be. Especially now, like going through the COVID thing, I feel like it's incredibly timely for what we all experienced just a few years ago.
Right. Well, I guess I'll start with like some of the summary. So the way that this movie opens is it opens aboard a ship in the sea. We see a woman on the like upper deck looking over the ocean. We just see her from behind. There's people in the captain area trying to figure out how to port or when to port. And then the story just starts being told from her point of view. And she starts off by saying, "It all began one day without warning like this." And the first scene we see is a phone ringing by like a computer desk. And then you see a woman on the other line. And it turns out that there's two women at this greenhouse job together. So they're trying to get in touch with Taguchi because they haven't heard from him in a week. And he was supposed to work on a disc that they needed for a deadline, like information on the shop sales. So one of our main characters, Michi, decides to go visit him to check on him. We see her taking the bus there. And immediately in this scene, I was struck by the bus seats being like this bright red, like this beautiful crimson red. And you're just struck by that color. And you're also struck by the fact that like there's no one on this bus with her. And they kind of, I think by this point, they already established like, so this plant place kind of is on top of a building in the city. They established that this is Tokyo. And if there's one thing I know about Tokyo, it's that it's like a very densely populated city. So I actually looked up what the population was. It has 14 million residents. And if you compare that to a city we know, New York City has 8 million residents. The metro area of Tokyo is 40 million.
Oh my
And
God.
the metro area of New York is half that. Obviously, there's something up in this movie already when she's on the bus and there's no one on the bus and there's no one in the streets. So,
and you know, the bus scene too kind of reminds me of like a really early film from like the 1920s. Like the way that they did the moving backdrop of the bus.
Yeah,
like,
I was thinking that too. It's like very simple, but it's like also kind of like uncanny. Like, yeah, so I don't know. You're just struck by that red color and you're struck by the isolation at first. Anyway, Michi gets to the building. On her way to the building, she sees this doorway just outlined in red tape. So there's more red. Like there's just this running thread of red in the background of this movie. She knocks on Taguchi's door. There's no answer. So she finds his spare key and lets herself in. She starts digging around his computer area, which like, if your friend was missing for a week, like, you think look for your friend first,
right? She's breaking and entering when you assume she's there to check on him, but no, she's just looking for work stuff.
Like, why is she not looking for the guy? Like, I don't know. Anyway, so she's like rooting around his computer area looking for the disc. And then there's this really cool shot. There's a lot of shots in this movie where you have a character and then something is happening in the background.
Yes.
And this one is just like chill inducing because she's standing there and then there's sort of this clear vinyl curtain between the kitchen doorway and the bedroom behind her, and you just see this figure sit up like and just stand up slowly. But it turns out she goes in that room and it turns out it's Taguchi, but he's kind of acting strangely. He's a little nervous. He's kind of dismissive. She's like so happy to see him, so happy he's okay. She asks if he's sick because he's just odd and he like disappeared for a week. Excuse me.
It's okay. I'm sorry. My cats are being absolute monsters right now.
Who knocked what over?
I don't even know. Because
I just heard that big bang.
I'm wearing like a baseball cap with a blanket over it, so I have no peripheral vision.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
I hope you don't get creeped out too bad sitting there in the dark with like the cats knocking stuff over talking about this movie.
I'll be okay. I like getting creeped out.
I saw someone on the internet say, like, after I watched this movie, they were like, yeah, you know, the best way to watch this movie is with headphones in on your laptop in the dark. And I was like, dang, I wish I would have did that because that probably would have just increased the experience even more.
Absolutely.
But anyway, he kind of dismisses her and tells her like the disc's on the desk and whatnot. So she goes to look again. Also, I believe he is just carrying around a rope while he's talking to her.
Yeah, like he looks very depressed, but his voice is like chipper and friendly. So
it's definitely like, one of those things like, hey, I'm fine, haha, but not really. Like, he's carrying around a fucking rope. He's not good. He's not like. So she's digging through the desk, and then she comes back to that room, and she finds him dead around the corner. He hung himself. Did you take that as he had hung himself before and she was talking to like a ghost, or did you take it as like he hung himself while she was there?
It's
I'm not
really
sure how to
hard to
take it.
tell because when they show his body, he looks almost mummified, like dried out a little, but like he's been sitting there for a little while. But just by the looks of his body, it's very off-putting how he looked hanging there.
He's like very waxy looking.
Yeah, like all of the like his neck is like strained super
Yeah.
hard, and he just looks like his skin is like like he's mummified a little bit.
So Michi, she ends up going. I think she goes to the police station. Her coworkers go and pick her up and take her for lunch. And Junko is like very shocked and depressed, and she really regrets. Like she wonders if there's anything they could have done. And then their male coworker / friend just kind of drops a bomb while they're sitting at the table, and he's like, "I get that way sometimes. It's so easy to hang yourself." And then nobody says anything, and the scene changes. So like, and I kind of like that scene because like I think it's like one of the only times we see sunshine in this movie because it's kind of like this bright and cheery cafe, and then juxtaposed with what the fuck he just said. Like,
oh my god.
Yeah, and he's just casually like drinking a milkshake and says that. So,
but that kind of makes sense with the whole like suicide epidemic that was happening in Japan at the time. It's like shocking but also not surprising given like the bigger context of the film.
Right. Yeah, and I kind of but yeah, so then they go back to work at the greenhouse, like plant shop place. They still talk about Taguchi wondering if there's anything they could have done. And then the coworker comes in and he's acting real weird. He tells them to come look at the disc. So they go to look and we see some like spreadsheet charts and stuff. And then we see a weird picture. And the picture seems to be like Taguchi facing a computer monitor. And there's that same picture repeated on each computer monitor infinitely, and then also like kind of like a creepy ghost looking through the other computer monitor. So this unsettles them pretty well. They try and talk about it. They're not really sure what's going on. Michi goes home that night, and while she's watching the news, the TV glitches and she's super unsettled, and then like a bottle falls behind her. So she's feeling really off. They're kind of letting us know something's not right. Do you have any thoughts up to this point?
Just the movie is so visually beautiful in like a really lonely kind of way. I don't know, like it just the whole thing feels really lonely.
It does. Like stark.
Yeah, and just beautiful use of lighting. I love the soft yellow kind of orangey light when she goes to check on her friend or get the disc. Just coming. That's like pretty much the only light source coming from the computer.
Just there's just such cool shots and like such an amazing attention to color.
Yeah. I don't know. It just hooks me right away. I'm like, what's going on here? Because you get the sense that something bigger is happening.
I like the subtlety of it, how it starts.
Yeah.
Because it's like our characters kind of know something's off, but they're not really acknowledging it super hard.
Yeah. Especially like when the TV glitches out, you're like, okay, whatever. The TV's glitching. But Mishi's reaction to that is like what makes you really think like,
yeah, like she's
what's
spooked.
Happening? Yeah.
So this story kind of has two storylines that end up converging. So then this next part marks the other, the beginning of the other storyline. So we meet this younger character next. He's a younger student. He has like blonde highlights. He kind of has like this surfer style. He wears a lot of shirts that are like in English. He's very fashionable and, he dresses very cool.
Yes.
So this next part is kind of funny. It's him setting up the internet on his computer, like by himself. And
he's an economics major.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because like he is a student, so he does seem to live alone. Like we just don't see all that many characters in this movie. Everybody's kind of really alone. So he's alone in his apartment setting up the internet. Then we hear that infamous dial-up noise. The screen goes black, and then there's this series of videos that come up. There's like a video of a guy staring at the screen while swaying, a video of someone like rolling on the floor and clutching their stomach, I think, and then a video of someone face down at the desk. And then the computer asks, "Would you like to meet a ghost?" Which I thought was such a cool line. I just loved that. And then eventually, I don't know, he's woken up from a nap and the dial-up's going by itself again, and there's another video on the screen. Also, like, the guy's, like, unsettled by it, but at the same time, like, you get this feeling like he just doesn't know what's going on.
I think what he's doing is, like, trying to download a game, and, like,
Okay.
yeah, he's, like, installing the software, and, like, you know how when you install software for a game on the computer, like, it has all these, like, end user agreement things to read through, and you have to
and he's
click,
like,
I agree.
okay.
He's like, whatever,
I agree
okay,
with
okay.
this.
And then the ghost pops up, so in my head, I'm like, boy, what did you agree to?
Yeah.
You never know what they put in those
Right.
terms and services.
That's very true.
You probably just agreed to a curse.
I'll say, yeah. Then we see, like, that video. There's a guy sitting by a wall. The wall says "help me" in Japanese on the, like, all around him. And he has a black garbage bag shrouded over his head. And he's, like, so spooked and unsettled by this, he, like, goes and gets a drink, and then the next day he visits the computer lab at school to, like, find somebody that might know more about what he just, like, saw.
Mhm.
So there he meets, like, Harue, which I hope I am pronouncing correctly. And she tries to give him directions to, like, bookmark the website or screenshot it. And it's so funny because she starts off by saying, like, "Oh, click this." And then he, like, he starts taking notes and he's like, "Click."
He's like, press print screen. And she's like, this is where the button is.
Like, he, you know, we're supposed to believe, like, this. He truly has nothing, which any of us would be in that scenario. But I just think it's very funny. Oh, and one thing I noticed about that scene, so there's so much cool use of color in this. So in that scene, the computer lab is just kind of like white and cream and beige and black and brown, like very neutral. And then he's wearing this aqua blue, like, Hawaiian shirt. And then she's wearing this same shade of aqua blue in, like, a sleeveless sweater. And that kind of marks their first meeting. And it's just such a neat use of color. And I feel like that's one of the only uses of color in this, like, intentional uses that's not red, because they use red a lot.
Yeah.
But that was something I noticed, and I just was really, really loving that.
They really went off on the cinematography
Oh, yeah.
in this movie.
I think the next thing that happens is Yabe, who is the other coworker, he gets a call, and they're asking for help over and over and over.
Yeah,
and this is on his cell phone.
This is back at the plant store.
Yeah, and at first I was like, wait, is this a store? Is this like a plant lab? But they're called Sunny Plant Sales. They say their name at some point. So he looks down at his phone, and there's that picture of Taguchi again, like, turned around looking with the creepy monitors. So he decides to go to his house as well. He begins to root around the computer desk. Then he, like, goes through the vinyl curtain to, like, look around in the other room. And he finds this paper sticking out of the printer that says "The Forbidden Room." He turns on the light and then sees this large black stain on the wall. And that's the spot where Taguchi had hung himself. So he, like, died in that spot, and there's a big black spot on the wall. Yeah, and it's kind of shorter. What'd you say?
I think the paper looks like a crumpled up, like, printout. It looked like a printer paper. Maybe it was printed from the computer.
Yeah, one of these mysterious programs. I think it's we kind of learn more later, but I think it's the instructions on how to, at this point, we don't know that there's something called the Forbidden Room, but I think it's the instructions on how to create one.
Okay.
So there's this really cool effect that happens here where, so the black spot on the wall is smaller than a person. It's, like, shorter and thinner. So there's this wide shot where we see him shut off the light. And as soon as he shuts off the light, you have to have your brightness up. But as soon as he shuts off the light, that black spot on the wall immediately turns to a person shape. Yeah. I thought that was the coolest thing.
So cool. So creepy.
And so subtle.
Yeah, it's so simple, but effective.
Yeah. Then he, like, comes back to the room, turns on the light, and what's there but dead Taguchi, who's, like, motionless and I don't think he has like the rope around his neck. I think he's just standing there like dead. And he tries to talk to him, but then a second later he's gone and there's just the black spot on the wall. So he's kind of like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I didn't see that. When he goes to leave, he sees that doorway with the red tape again, and he decides to approach it. So he pulls off the red tape and enters it, like an apartment stairwell or something. Is that what it seemed like to you?
Yeah, some type of
like
stairwell.
A hallway or like stairwell. So
something like that.
There's also some kind of weird red graffiti on the wall, which like slowly lights up as he's looking at it. And then he turns around and there's a woman standing there. And she starts to approach him and she walks like a doll kind of. She stumbles. It's like an interpretive dance almost. Yeah. It reminds me of something from Twin Peaks. Like it reminds me of like a David Lynch.
She's almost like undulating in like a really disjointed
she's just moving in this completely unnatural way.
Yeah.
Yes, disjointed, like so strangely. So she like approaches him. He kind of falls to the ground. He's terrified. He jumps behind the couch and eventually she like reaches over, look at him, and he screams. But I just want to say the actress that played that ghost, because we realize it's a ghost, the control she had over her body to like do that in the way she did it was just so smooth and so creepy. And I know a lot of people say like the ghosts in this movie are scary, and I agree. It makes me think of also the 70s movie The Sentinel. There's kind of this naked ghost that just moves strangely.
Oh my god!
I don't know. Even in like Hell House LLC, how those clown mannequins are moving around the house. I hate those fucking things.
It's so
and it's not clowns. It's just the idea that there's just this like dummy that is not a real person moving around where it shouldn't be moving around. And that's the same effect this ghost woman gives me. It's so creepy.
Oh yeah. And I think this like with Japanese horror does so well, especially in this era in the early 2000s, was just ghosts. I don't know.
Yeah, like just people doing the wrong thing.
Oh my god. Yeah, like the way that they're like peeking over stuff and then their hair's all over it. It's so good.
Yeah. Oh, I also liked when she was peeking over the couch. They had like a fan going, so her hair was rippling, which kind of gave it like an otherworldly feel. Like, like
ethereal kind of, but in a creepy way. Oh my god, so good.
Very few things creep me out and very few things stick with me, but if it's anything, it's like stuff like that. Creepy lady.
It just the thought of it's creeping me out now just thinking about it.
I know. So anyway, I think that's the end of Yabe's life as he knows it. The girls are at work wondering why he didn't come in. They're talking about trying to call him. He does show up to work, but he's like almost catatonic. He apologizes that he's late, but then he ignores them. And then this part, I think I might need your clarification too, because you've seen this more times. But we do see in another scene, we see Michi like watching a girl in a red skirt, putting red tape around a door frame. But is that supposed to be like the ground floor of where the plant place is? Because we see that a second time.
Yeah. I'm not sure where exactly. I think it's meant to be like somewhere random.
Like on
her daily route, maybe to work.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
She's just like walking around, like going home or going to the store, and she's just like happens across this lady taping up this door in red tape. Like I think it's just to show that this is becoming like a more widespread kind of occurrence happening. Like there's just bizarre things happening everywhere now.
Okay, because I wasn't 100% sure where that location was, but so she watches this girl just make like a red border of tape around a door. Next thing we see our pal with the surfer hair, Kawashima, sitting in the arcade like with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. Funny to me because like the dude's like seemingly a college student. He's old enough to like go to a bar or like a club or something, and then he just goes to hang out at the arcade.
I think that the arcades are very popular in Japan.
Well, they're not popular in this movie because they're fucking dead when they're in there. Nobody goes to these arcades. But we know why later.
Yeah.
But yeah, he goes and sits at the arcade with a cigarette in his mouth. And
can I just say too, like, quick interruption, everyone is so beautiful in this
I
movie.
know.
Like even Michi's mom, I'm just like, why are you so
oh my God,
beautiful?
I know. She's so pretty. Even the boss, even their weird boss,
I
that like
know.
gives her a weird pep talk. He's kind of attractive. I don't know.
That pep talk was amazing. We'll get
I
to
know,
that.
it's so weird. So I don't know. We kind of get the feeling that Kawashima's feeling bored. He like walks home. He starts making calls. He's like flipping through magazines. He's fidgeting. He's walking all around. Just seems like he's having like a restless night. And then in the background, the computer boots up, and we see another video. I also just like the use of I don't know if I want to call them wide shots. They're not really wide shots, but whatever the kind of shot is where you're just getting in a room like a diorama happening. Like they use that a lot in here. The computer boots up, then there's more weird videos there. He tries to follow the directions to save it or screenshot it, but I don't think he succeeds. The shrouded figure in the video gets pulled to like the camera, but right before it pulls the shroud off his head, he freaks out and unplugs everything. He goes to find Harue, admits that he couldn't screenshot this and whatever, so she volunteers to come over. During that time, he kind of notices this, it looks like a screensaver on the computer, but she says it's like a program that one of the grad students made, and he asks about it, and she said, the dots, when they get close, they die. If they go far apart, they're drawn closer. And she says it's a model of their world.
Yeah, that part's very interesting. I guess it's a grad student's project.
Yeah, and you kind of get the feeling from her that she seems to be a lonely person, and she seems to be like a bit like nihilistic about everything, and it seems like she doesn't connect with people. Kind of warns him not to stare at it too long, and I don't know if we really get any follow-up to that, but so he takes her to his apartment to look at the computer, and there's just even more use of red here. So there's like red lights, the underside of his skateboard's red, there's a red blanket, there's red Coke cans. I think he might be wearing a red shirt here. He's slowly trying to clean the apartment while she's hanging out.
Yeah, you can tell he has a crush on her.
Yeah, like he's definitely crushing hard.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, she just makes small talk. She's like, what made him want to go on the internet? And he's kind of like, I don't know if he's like actually being evasive, but he seems kind of like unsure. And she's just like, oh, did you want to connect with people? People don't really connect. And then she talks about loneliness and stuff here. Like, and again, she just seems to be this character that feels very isolated and talks about it.
She's almost like doesn't believe that like you get the idea she doesn't believe that anyone can really connect to anyone else, and we're all just truly
She's very
alone.
cynical.
Yes, very cynical. She does seem to like Ryusuke though.
Yeah, she kind of like immediately seemed to like warm to him. Which is nice, you know, then they can be friends. But any other thoughts up to this point?
No, like I for whatever reason that program sticks with me of the dots. And she's like, oh, if people get too close, they like destroy each other.
Right.
And if what'd she say? If they're too far away, what happens?
If they're too far away, they're drawn closer.
They're too far away, they're drawn closer, and then if they're too close, they destroy each other.
Yeah,
and it just, I don't know, it kind of just reminds me of humanity. Like it's just like a very cynical way.
Her outlook, like avoiding people so neither thing happens. Like so she doesn't need somebody, but she doesn't, you know, get close enough to destroy anybody either.
And this might be a little ranty right now, like I might
go ahead.
I might go on a little rant, but the other day I was thinking, like just like sometimes I like to think of general things, like, you know, there's the whole thing of like if everything's soup. You ever hear that question?
I don't know.
Like people debate this thing where it's like, is everything soup? Like I like just like really like the idea of really simplifying everything. And like I was thinking the other day, like, is everything just like us smashing into each other? Just like things smashing into each other. Like all the way down to the Big Bang Theory, we're all just smashing into each other and dealing with the chaos that erupts from it. So I don't know why. I was just like driving and I had this thought. So, and I saw this program.
It's like a dangerous thought to have while driving.
I know, it's so weird. I'm like, okay, like even when people have like sex with each other, you're just smashing into each other. And then when you're making a baby, it's just sperm smashing into eggs. And then it's just DNA smashing into each other.
I think you're onto something here. She's right. Everything's like this screensaver thing. It's not I call it a screensaver.
It looks like a screensaver. It does.
It does look like a screensaver.
Like the one where it's like the ball bouncing and you're waiting for the logo or whatever to bounce in the corner.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of. But yeah, I heard that and I'm like, yeah. Dots smashing together. I'm like, that's deep. That's a deep cut right there.
It is deep.
That's philosophy in my brain.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
so that was my main thought about that section of the movie, and just like I'm kind of rooting for them to hook up too, just because I think they make like a cute couple. Like she's the computer science lady and he's in economics, and they've got this like weird flirty kind of tension between them, and I'm just like, aw. And then every time she talks, she just starts to say more and more concerning things.
Yes.
And I'm just like, is she okay? Like, can you let yourself have a friend? Because I think you need that right now.
Right. Yeah, and then the scene after that, Yabe is still ignoring everyone at work. I think I'm saying his name right. I'm really doing my best here. I tried to listen. I looked up pronunciations. I'm so sorry if I'm getting it wrong, but I'm trying my best. He's still ignoring everyone. Mishi asks the boss, like, if he thinks he's acting weird. And that's when he, like, gives her this weird talk about friendship.
Yeah, it's like, who hurt you? Like,
I know. Like,
everyone seems hurt by someone or something in particular that happened to them.
People are all very bitter about something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he gives her that weird friendship talk. And kind of, I feel like he says something to like, oh, like, it's kind of futile to worry about him. Like, that's kind of what it feels like he's saying.
Yeah. Like she was like, she was like, should I be worried about my friend? Like, what should I do about this? And he's like, well, if you try to talk to a friend about something that's bothering you, usually they get mad at you and then the friendship is just ruined.
This guy really had like a specific bad experience, I feel.
It's like, whoa, I mean, with certain people, sure, that's right, but not everyone.
So she of course, I don't think she likes what he says, and she immediately like tries to go find Yabe and asks him if he's okay, and he's kind of like knocking boxes over, and like finally he admits he saw a face, and he's not very clear on what he meant. He tells her about the forbidden room and says don't go in there, but again, he doesn't seem to be like clear on it. He said she's cold, and it seems like she goes to like get him a blanket, but he already starts walking away. And then I guess the day's over because again we see her looking at that red tape door that woman had been taping up like the day previously. At one point, so it's another one of those shots where it's like a big shot where you see her in the front doing something, so she's trying to make a call. And there's this big tower, like an industrial tower in the back, like, I don't know, not like a water tower. You can see there's a woman in a red skirt. So it's that woman that had been taping up the door. Mm-hmm. She's standing on top of it. And while Mishi's making the call, this woman just jumps to her death and like screams. And Mishi watches it happen. And it's such a shocking, abrupt scene. Like,
yeah.
That was one of the most impactful scenes to me in the movie.
Up to that point, like, the people who have been dying have been, like, related to the main character somehow. But this is just some random lady doing it.
Right. Yeah. So she like, jumps to her death. Like, there's a couple people on the street behind her that, like, come around the corner and, like, kind of look. Mm-hmm. And it's just such a very shocking scene.
Oh, yes.
And then I don't know if we see it right after that, but we do learn later that, like, when she died, she left a black spot where she fell.
Yes.
And that comes into play later. Then we go back to our cool hip guy with his puppy dog crush. He's kind of like wandering the library. And this is so funny to me because, like, it's kind of like just this disorienting shot of him, like, wandering around the aisles. And like,
did you catch the ghosts in the opening scene of him in the library. It's like really subtle.
I'm not sure, but what I did notice was there was a girl pushing a library cart and she was moving strangely and like almost in
Yes.
like that catatonic state that people get in before they die after they go in the forbidden room. Like, is that
Yeah.
what you're talking about?
No, before that, he walks into the library and you can see like so it's like I think the shot is at his back and then you can see like the rows of the bookshelves and you
Uh-huh.
see like out of 3 bookshelves in like sequential order, like 3 people that are just
Oh
like
my
black
gosh.
figures all peek out at him
Oh my
at the
God.
same
No, I
time.
missed that.
It's
I missed
very
that.
subtle, and that's the first time I noticed that watching this movie. And then I'm like, what the hell? Are those all ghosts? And then you see this lady pushing the cart, and you're just like, is this lady a ghost? Is she going to be a ghost? Like, what? Something creepy's going on in this library.
Yeah, like my thing seeing her push the cart, which I noticed on like my second watch, because like I watched it and then I went through it again, kind of fast forwarding through some, but just like finishing my notes. But that's when I
Mm-hmm.
noticed that where she's just like, walking in this strange way, but it seems to be the way people act like after they see something in that room and like before they
Yes.
die.
Yes.
So I just thought that was so interesting because as soon as she goes by in the cart, that's when he notices like Haruwe, who was like browsing the books, and
Mm-hmm.
turns out she was looking at this book called Phantoms that
Ooh.
she puts back on the shelf, and he asks her if that's related to her work in the lab, and she says yes. And then she kind of seems like she has something she wants to let him know. So they go to look at the weird computer screen program again, and she starts comparing them to ghosts. She brings up the website and thinks it's related. And then at that time, that grad student comes in to have her check over his work, and like Kawashima leaves and she comes racing down to give him her phone number and like tells him to call anytime. So it kind of seems like he like immediately felt unwelcome when that other student came in.
Yeah.
He like left pretty quick.
I love
And
that
then
scene because it's like it shows like this awkward moment where you're like, am I supposed to leave now? Like
yeah.
I'm like, I felt that one, buddy.
Yeah, poor guy.
Hmm.
So then like the next thing we kind of see him reading the Phantoms book in the library,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like reading a little bit of it out loud, and then the grad student shows up and starts talking to him. Also, the grad student is wearing a button-up red shirt, so he's like another touch of red in the
Mm-hmm.
background. So our guy sees a shadow among the shelves, and the grad student's like, "Do you see it? Of course you do, because it's really there." And he challenges him to go get it. So he takes off running, and the shadow disappears, of course. And he's like out of breath, and he's like unsettled and scared, and the grad student kid comes up the aisle, and then he takes him to like have a cup of tea with him to talk to him about ghosts.
Oh yeah, his
And
weird ghost theory.
yeah, and like our guy is like shaking and scared and cold,
Mm-hmm.
and the grad student kind of explains to him that in like the purgatory that the souls get to, it gets to capacity, and then they start, when it's filled, they start like oozing back into our world, which is like the infamous quote, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth, which is
Uh-huh.
basically what's happening here. They're kind of overflowing back into our
Oh, I
realm.
didn't I didn't make that connection. What's
Yeah.
that quote from?
Is it
Oh
Dawn or
yeah.
is it Night of the Living Dead?
One of those. One of those
Somebody's yelling
zombie
right
movies.
now.
Mm.
Okay. The quote is burned into my mind either way.
That's yeah.
But but
Ugh.
then like he starts talking about ghosts, and then we kind of see this vision to this guy, like a maintenance guy at a shipyard building, and we don't know that guy, right? Like that's
No.
not
Mm-mm.
anybody we know. We see him like ask a construction worker outside for tape, and he gives him red tape, and he starts taping like an outline on a window and a door. And the grad student kid explains that after a period of time, it will finally happen. And what he means is that a ghost will appear. So basically, what I think the Forbidden Room is this entryway for the ghosts that people can build. And then the next thing we see is we see that guy watch the building get demolished. And when the building gets demolished, we also see like a phone jack, that you would connect your dial up through like a phone jack kind of in the rubble. So like, is that supposed to be the inception of all this? And like, because that was demolished, this is like this widespread contagion? Like,
I think it's hinting that the ghosts overflowed from their realm into the like internet, because that's how you would connect to the internet, is through the phone line. And then from the internet they're able to leak into our world. So I think that the internet's like a medium here where they're
but do you think that was like trying to say that like that's how the doors, like that's how the floodgates got opened the first time?
I think probably, though, that he's trying to say, I think that the point of that scene was like, yeah, this is probably the first instance of this happening, was just like some random old building that they were demolishing.
Yeah. That's kind of what I got from that. I think the next thing we see a guy taping up like a grid of red tape in like a hallway or windows.
I was under the assumption, I thought like the red tape was a way to keep them sealed into that room.
Oh, true. Then the girls are at the plant store again. They're wondering where their boss is because he didn't come into work. Michi's like calling on the phone, and like Junko is like super like vacant and unsettled and asking why everybody's disappearing. Michi gets a call back from Yabe. He's asking for help, and he's in an indoor office. She approaches him and sees him, but then on the second look, he's just a black spot on the wall. And then he's asking for help over and over. She goes outside into the sun. Junko's gone, and then she sees her ripping red tape off of a door while she's wearing a red dress, while a red light blinks, and enters the room. And Michi at this point kind of knows that there's something going on with this red tape. So she goes in to follow her to try and get her out. Junko's like cowering on the floor. There's like a dark, solid figure ghost. Yeah. She drags Junko out, but Junko is like approached by one of the creepy ghosts, and they have like creepy arms.
This is like like a more traditional Japanese ghost for me too.
So creepy.
Yeah.
And like Michi like kind of realizes there's something wrong with Junko, so she takes her like home to try and help her. So Junko tries to sleep it off. Michi tries to comfort her. Michi like goes to the convenience store to pick up some snacks and drinks, and no one seems to be working. But then she sees like this like silhouette of a worker in the background peeking around the corner. Yeah. But she gets so creeped out by this, and it probably is a ghost. But she gets so creeped out by this that she just takes her like snacks and drinks and runs. And
in my mind, I'm like, girl, take more snacks. Like, take all the snacks while you can, dude. Why are you just taking one?
And then she's like dropping it through the street while she's going home. Yeah, it's a mess. Super scared by that. Our hip guy tries to make a call to Haruwe. Nobody picks up. He runs to, I think, go to the computer lab, and then like the chairs are rolling across the floor in a spooky way. I think there's a creepy video on the computer screen of this guy kind of just pacing and glitching. Our guy takes the address he has on paper for her house, and he tries to go there, and when he's like trying to get to her apartment, you can see her in the background, and she's like really soaking wet from the rain and disoriented. He helps her out, gets her to the apartment. He like, helps her dry off, makes some tea. And then she starts with her dark thoughts again. And she's just saying like she wonders what it would be like to die. And she starts speaking positively about death. And he's like really uncomfortable and tells her to stop. She turns on the monitors with the creepy videos, and she's saying that ghosts and people are the same. And he says, like, nobody knows what happens when they die, and he's not going to believe in ghosts even if he sees one. He's, like, really adamant that there's nothing weird going on. Ghosts aren't real, and he's uncomfortable with her talking about death. And she's just kind of, like, very suicidal at this point. I don't know. I feel like this scene is really a commentary on mental health, because
absolutely
somebody talking about the way they feel and the other person just being like, no, you can't feel that way. It's not allowed.
Yeah.
Stop talking about it. Like, just shutting her down. Even though she is in a bad place here. And she seems to be affected by this curse or something at this point, but he just doesn't want her to talk about it.
Yeah, I think depression is a huge theme in this movie. Might be like the
Yeah,
main
I
point of
agree.
it is just like mental health problems. And
Yeah, and kind of the way of people wanting to shut them down, kind of.
yeah, and how not being able to, have like a support system or talk about it is the
Yeah, I feel
worst
like it's
thing you can do.
a big thing in this movie is just the isolation and loneliness and not having a support
Absolutely.
system.
Yeah.
Um,
Like when people get like haunted by the ghosts or whatever, like and they're in this weird in between space, like it's just depression.
mhm. Yeah.
And when just them like fading into nothingness on the wall, like it just feels like it's just how depression feels. Like you just kind
Mhm.
of want like you want to sit on the couch and not do anything and
Mhm.
no motivation to do anything. You just want it like to eat you, be a little splotch on it.
Yep.
Mhm.
And then like this is kind of like something they splice in here, but they splice in that really brief scene of the woman who fell from the tower, like the body, the black spot she left on the ground, and then like the creepy voiceover it saying "Help me" over and over.
Mhm.
So they kind of, I think they spliced that in there pointedly after that conversation. But
Oh yes.
then like the next thing, like Mishi's still trying to comfort Junko. Junko's kind of like incoherent and weird. Mishi finally eventually falls asleep, and when she gets up, Junko is by her open window.
Oh
And Mishi's kind of in crisis mode. She's trying to like comfort her. She goes to make some more tea,
no.
and
Mhm.
Junko is like really vacant and strange at this point. And when Mishi turns around again, Junko is gone and there's a black spot on the wall. And then this black spot dissolves and falls off the wall, and the fragments blow out the window, which is like a
Ugh.
really creepy looking scene. And Mishi can't get the window shut. And later, Mishi tries to call her mom. There's no answer. So again, that isolation and like less people, nobody's answering their calls. People are just disappearing.
Mhm.
It was very, very creepy and strange. Like
Yeah,
Mishi just watched her
very
friend turn into a black spot on the wall.
yeah, very tense scene, especially when she's standing by like the open patio or window. I'm just like that girl's gonna jump, dude. Don't turn your back,
Oh,
please.
I know, I
Get
know.
her
That's what
away
I
from
thought
the
was gonna
window.
happen. But then she just leans against the wall and just disappears.
Yeah, which seems even worse, actually.
Yeah. And
Mm.
she goes out the window anyway because the fragments blow out the window. But
Yeah.
then like we see our dude again at the empty arcade and no one is there. No one comes when he rings the bell. And then
Mhm.
eventually we see that there's a silhouette wandering around, and it's like distorting and glitchy, and there's something creepy about this just like empty half lit arcade that he's
Yes.
hanging out in, because like arcades are supposed to be this hustle and bustle and exciting place, and there's nothing happening here except this girl wandering around. And at one point he turns around and he sees like the remnants of red tape around a doorway,
Ugh.
from somebody ripping off tape from a forbidden room. He
Mhm.
leaves the building. Harue's out, like, he finds her and she's like acting really weird. She's like smacking at broken glass. She's like smacking at plants. And
She's just
she's,
like hunched down on the ground, like squatting,
yeah, just
just
smacking
beating the
stuff.
crap out of glass bottles and
Yeah.
things.
I mean, who hasn't wanted to do that at some point? But
I might have done that to my ex-boyfriend's PlayStation one time. And yes, it felt good, okay? Don't do it. It's not very mentally healthy of you to do that. So, but dang, did it feel good.
it's gotta break stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, I don't know. Then she's like really kind of erratic. She tells him to take her somewhere. They go to the train station, but the ticketing's out of order. No one's there. They jump the turnstiles to wait for the train. When they get on the train, no one else is on the train except them.
Mm-mm.
And then the train breaks down, so they don't get anywhere anyway.
It's like
And then,
definitely a more like apocalyptic or like post-apocalyptic feel to it now.
yeah, I mean, it feels like, yes, the post apocalyptic, but another thing I was thinking of was just like the ghosts are coming from a purgatory, but at this point, this is purgatory because they can't escape.
Yes, it does feel like
They can't get
purgatory.
anywhere.
Yeah, like a weird in-between place.
Yeah. Like you said, like the liminal spaces in this and stuff. Yeah, so just like they can't get out. I don't remember exactly how, but he like loses touch with her and can't find her. And then we see her alone at her like desks and computer monitors. And there's videos, but there's nobody in the videos except the last one, which is the shrouded figure on a rolling chair. Papers start printing from her computer that say Forbidden Room again. The video, the man removes his shroud and shoots himself in the head. The papers are the instructions to build the Forbidden Room, and they like mention requiring red tape. I kind of wonder what else those papers said because like the subtitles just give you a very brief, they just say
Yeah.
Forbidden Room and red tape. So I kind of wonder if there were like more distinct instructions there or
Yeah.
something.
See,
But
I watched this on Amazon Prime and I bought it on there. And I can't even use the Amazon subtitles because the video comes with its own subtitles. So when you turn the Amazon one on, it just like overlays it on the original one and you can't read anything.
Something I noticed too with the Amazon subtitles, and this is just something that like, it's just, I feel like it also ties into this because we're at the point now where the internet is becoming useless. But something I've noticed in the past few months, because I always watch with subtitles, is that Amazon seems to have outsourced their subtitles to AI.
Oh no.
Because they stopped making sense. Like there's so many I've read that
Oh
like don't make
no.
sense. Like there's no consistency. Like somebody will say a character name, but it'll translate as like a word that
Oh
sounds like the character. It's
gosh.
like the most insane thing ever. It's so annoying.
AI's gone too
Ah,
far.
it
Stop.
really has. It's ruining my life.
Ugh, yikes.
But then she's acting real weird in this room, and there's like on the monitor, there's a video of her being filmed from the hallway behind her. And eventually she kind of like approaches it and starts hugging and kissing thin air, which is so creepy. And she's like, I'm not alone. So we don't really know what she saw. We don't see what she saw, but she was just
It's like
hugging
she's
and
like
kissing thin
making
air.
out with a ghost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very strange.
She just completely loses it at this point.
Yep. So, and actually, I thought she was in her apartment here, but I don't know where she was at this point.
I don't know either. I thought it might have been the like computer science lab at the
Maybe it was the
school.
computer lab, because then I think he goes to her apartment and he like breaks down her door because she's not like she won't answer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she was at the computer lab. But anyway, then the next thing we see, so he can't find her. The next thing we see is he's like on the street watching this like endless news report of a list of missing people. And the next thing he does is he like gets this soda. He like pushes a bunch of buttons on the vending machine and then opens the vending machine and a bunch of sodas fall out. So I don't know if that's implying that like he knew a trick to get soda or like the world's just falling apart and the vending machine was open. Like I'm not sure which of those were happening, but anyway.
Either
Gets a
way,
bunch
it's
of
free.
soda.
It's free unlimited soda. You got to get
Yep.
those calories in somehow.
Yep. Then like kind of near him there's a car broken down on the bridge, and then this is where our story points converge because it's Mishi's
Woo!
broken car. So he like approaches her, he asks her like what she's doing. They kind of, have a conversation. They take a break together and drink some soda, and he helps her get the car back together.
When they meet, he like hands her a soda and they ask each other what their names are and they can't remember. So they're like in a daze.
I don't think I noticed that.
Yeah,
I noticed he like doesn't say his name, but I don't know. I don't think I like realized that. I thought maybe he was just like acting strange or like nervous or something.
No, because
Oh my God.
they ask each other what their names are and they just both go quiet and they're like, where are you from? And they're just like confused, like they don't know what's happening.
Oh my gosh.
So,
yeah, I didn't connect that.
Yeah, so I think that they're starting to get the whatever's happening to everyone else, this depression. Like I think they're starting to get this kind of like brain fog going. Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
But then I think them meeting each other kind of like re-sparks something in them, brings them back a little bit. Because they were lonely before that.
That's true too. So he kind of divulges to her that like his friend is missing, and she said that, you know, he should go look for his missing friend. She'll go with him. I wonder, I guess at this point, it seems like Mishi's kind of like this caring person, and maybe because she couldn't find Junko, that's why she wants to help him find her friend.
Yeah.
So she doesn't, you know, she feels like she should do that. So when they're driving in the car, they are driving in like a weird trance. Like he's driving her car and he's acting very strangely. And another thing I noticed is like in like the windows of the car, everything's kind of bright and foggy. So like I think I got the feeling from that you got like when they couldn't remember their names.
Yeah.
Because the weirdness is kind of creeping into them at that point.
Oh yes.
Then like they go to either, I don't know, is it her Harue's apartment? They're in somebody's apartment, and she points out this abandoned factory outside and suggests they go search it. And she warns him, you know, if he sees a doorway with red tape, not to go near it, and he says, I know. Then when they're in the abandoned factory, they see a figure above them, like shrouded in a black garbage bag again, and like on a catwalk above them. Try to go get it. She's not there. They see an empty roll of red tape on the ground, and then they do see the shrouded figure up close. She takes the shroud off her head, and it's Harue, who shoots herself in the head.
Oh my God.
In front of them.
Uh-huh.
So they watch her basically die. He tries to call 911. I think Mishi realizes, like, at that point that there's nothing that could be done. Then they kind of are just sitting next to her dead body covered in a sheet. They try to leave, but they're out of gas. And he realizes that he saw some gas in the factory, so he'd go get some gas from in there. So he's pumping it into the can, and when he goes to cap it, what happens? He loses the lid. And where does the lid go? Into a forbidden room.
No.
Fuck the lid at that point, or whatever. You don't need
lid,
it,
dude.
I don't even know if it was the lid or like
can.
a seal, but you had the can. You could just go. Unless it was a spout, I don't know. But he felt like he had to go in the room to get it.
Oh my God. And I like want to pull my hair out. Like I just want to shake him. What are you doing,
I know.
bro?
He knows he shouldn't go in it. But I think that they kind of establish that, you know, he does feel like something weird is going on, but he's too stubborn to believe that there's something beyond his understanding.
Yeah, he's like in denial. So he's like,
so he thinks
nothing's
he can
gonna
go in there.
happen. Yeah.
And that would be me, because I would be like, oh, nothing's going on. Ghosts aren't real. And
no, don't you do that.
No. Well, now I know. I know not to. But
oh my God.
Just saying. So he goes into the door. There is a blurry, creepy ghost in there. It's like speaking to him and asking for help.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the boss fight, like the big boy ghost, you know? Like the ultimate ghost daddy.
Ghost, yeah. Ghost daddy. Yeah, he kind of this phrase. He's like, death was eternal loneliness. He tells the ghost isn't real. He refuses to acknowledge death, but the ghost is still there. He thinks he knows how to beat the ghost, so he like runs to the ghost, but then his hands hit the solid shoulders of the ghost. And he does drop to the ground in fear. The ghost says it's real. The ghost like kind of leans in closer and closer to him, and the dial tone noise comes on. And then, you know, then we cut to the outside of the factory. Mishi's leaving her car to go inside because he hadn't come out. She finds him kind of upstairs, like sitting on the ground. And he's like, okay, we gotta go. And then we see that he had been standing by the black spot on the floor where Harue's body had just disappeared. So they get in the car to go. Then we see like the state of the world at this point, where the streets really are empty. There's stuff burning down. There's a wrecked motorcycle, burning cars, like debris.
Burning buildings.
There's like things on fire. There's black smoke. And she kind of drives them down to the water. He was sleeping. He's acting kind of weird, but he's saying like they should just leave and go as far as they can go. So they see that there's a motorboat down there. So she like has him get in it, and she goes up to get the key out of the station that's nearby. And then we see a plane just on fire and crash and explode at like a very close distance to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it crashed right in that building because she goes in that building and the whole thing's full of like, I don't know, like ash and incinerated bodies.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
She finds the key. They get in the boat, which is just like the silliest, weakest little wooden motorboat that like I wouldn't be putting any bets on this in this situation, you know?
Right.
I don't think I'd
And
be
you
trying to
going
leave
into
in
the
that boat.
ocean on that
Like
for a long
yeah.
trip. Yeah.
Yeah. So they go out in the bay. He's like in a weird daze. And we see like the city burning, like this wide shot of the city on fire. And then I guess we're supposed to think at some point that like a big ship had picked them up because they're both on this ship then.
Yeah.
She's standing on the deck. It's kind of the shot that the movie opened with. There's like that same man who's like the captain. He's saying they're going to head to Latin America, but the signals are weak. So I guess they're implying they don't really know what's happening in the world, but they're going to try and go somewhere. Then we kind of see her in one of the, in an inner part of the ship or one of the cabins or something, and she's kind of like going through her bag, and our dude's sitting against the wall, and he just disappears into a black shadow on the wall. And then kind of the closing line for her is like, now with my only friend, I have found happiness. And it kind of ends on this bittersweet note where we think like maybe she will make it.
Yeah.
And right before the credits, it's like this zoom out of the boat on the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the movie.
What a movie.
I know. It's just a wild movie.
Absolutely wild. I like how it just spirals. This is where this movie is different from other Japanese movies I've seen, where it has like an apocalyptic element to it. Where I feel like other curses in other movies like have the potential of spreading and being apocalyptic, but you never really see it going there. And this one just ramps up, kind of slow in the beginning, and then just spirals.
It's an interesting take on like this like just contagion. Like obviously I don't mean that in a disease manner, but just like this like social contagion and like
yes.
I don't know, it also reminds me of like, and this is something that's been around longer than TikTok, but like we had all these things before TikTok challenges, and like it just kind of reminds me like when they're printing out the directions of the forbidden room, it just reminds me of like those early like internet urban legends and like challenges and like creepypastas and
oh my god,
chain
like
letters
how to summon a demon, and it's like step-by-step instructions.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. And then I feel like in a lot of ways this movie was very much this like pinpointed movie in this period of time that dealt with things we'd seen. But in a way, I almost feel like it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy of things we saw after this movie came out.
Absolutely.
Like,
yes.
and like we kind of talked about on our own, like just being the age we are and like growing up with the internet the way we did and what we had seen on the internet at such a young age, which I think is just, it's a millennial experience. It really is. Like those of us between like 30 and 40 grew up with the internet in a way that kids born like, in 2001 don't really have a relation to the way we did. I don't know. Like you kind of think about how the internet was shrouded in this mystery. Like your friend would be like, oh, go to this website, go to that website.
Yeah.
Fucking rotten.com. Like,
oh my God.
Like just all this shocking stuff at
like
our fingertips.
LiveLeak.
Like
it's just crazy stuff. I remember I was on the dark web, like IRC, when I was like 12.
Oh my gosh.
It was insane. Like it was just such a dangerous place to grow up. Amanda Todd, they have documentaries about it on YouTube. It's just such a tragic story, but it was the reality of like a young girl growing up with unlimited internet restriction at that age when parents didn't really know what the dangers were of the internet, and just being exposed to really shocking graphic images and videos at a really young age.
I was
Not
thinking
really.
too, like this movie was in '01, so I feel like in '01 most people were still using dial-up, so
Yep.
we couldn't really load videos. Like you couldn't really upload videos or watch videos. So there was
Oh,
this
yeah.
spot of time after this movie came out where this stuff was. I just feel like it was so much more prevalent back then, and I don't know if it has to do with the fact that there was less on the internet at that time, so this is the shit we were like being exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just the most shocking videos you can imagine that like
Yeah.
just like showing up and you would just I don't know, it's just fucked up. And then I think of now where you can't even say the word fuck on Instagram without like worrying
Oh,
your account's going to
yeah.
get deleted, which like
Mm-hmm.
that's not a good place to be either. There should just be some kind of happy medium in the middle where you don't have to worry that you're going to see something fucking insanely shocking on the internet at any given
Absolutely.
time,
Oh
but
my
you should be
God.
able to be doing more than you're allowed to do on these social media sites.
So Japanese horror, a lot of it has to do with cursed technology. And
Mhm.
I think that comes from post-war stuff where like there was a lot of westernization happening throughout the country
Mhm.
post-war. And it was unfamiliar and people kind of saw it as like a bad thing. So then
Mhm.
they started like, that's where all these curses centered around technology came from, all this like Western technology, just a general distrust of
Yeah.
the westernization of Japan. The haunted technology thing just gets me. I just love that so much because we use it so much. It's almost prophetic with what the internet has done to society and like social media. Social media is just, their main goal is to get you hooked on it as much as you can, to get as much
Mhm.
screen time as you can. They want you to become addicted to it. You get addicted to feeling like you're connected to all these people, maybe a celebrity or influencers. You feel like you're a friend or a part of their life, but it's
Yeah,
not
like
a
a
real.
parasocial relationship.
Yeah, and it's just for these social media companies to capitalize off, and I really think it's causing a lot of brain rot with us.
It just really is amazing how the stuff that this movie covers, where basically, you know, they're talking and they're like, you know, oh, did you get the internet because you wanted to connect with people? Because even 22 years ago, the internet was for, you know, entering a chat room and connecting with people and whatnot.
Yeah,
And obviously that's still what we do, and that seems to be the main draw of the internet. But
yeah.
and like I wasn't aware that people called this movie like, you know, one of the scariest movies out there, because I do think it's very scary and unsettling because this is the
Mm,
kind of movie that scares me. But I was reading on Reddit where some people were like, oh, I wasn't scared by this movie. But I think you just have to be in a specific place where there's this
yes.
intersection of your own experience with mental illness and your own experience with this part of the internet and growing up at a certain time. That
Yeah,
all has to be present for you to be scared of this movie because you have to relate to it. Like
absolutely.
so if you don't relate to it, you're not gonna find it scary. But to me, I was like, man, this is fucking rough. Like,
Mm-hmm. And you were talking about how just the fact that it's in Japan and specifically Tokyo and like dealing with suicide, which at the time, I mean, even now, it's still a big problem in Japan.
yeah, I think that the kind of horror that comes out of a place is directly a result of the kind of society that people come from.
And I've got some facts here about the suicide rates in Japan. So the suicide rate spiked very heavily in the late 90s in Japan. Between
Okay.
1997 and 1998, there was a 34.7% increase
Oh my goodness.
in
That makes a lot
suicide
of sense, like
rates.
to inspire this story.
Yeah, because this movie came out in 2001, so
Right. So
you
right
could,
on the tails of
yeah,
that and the Y2K shit, like Y2K
absolutely. Oh
paranoia.
my God. Yeah. This is like, it really feels like whoever made this movie was deeply affected by
Right.
suicide, maybe, people that they know. Also, the Y2K aspect of it and the grief,
Mhm.
very heavy on grief from just what happens to everyone else. The ripple effect that suicide has and how devastating it is to
Mhm.
communities when that happens. They say with death, it's like 1 minute you're here and the next minute you're not, like you never know. And this movie is just that, like, literally when they die, it's just a split second and they just disappear. And
very heavy movie.
yes, it touches on a lot of things that I don't even think it meant to highlight. It's kind of beyond its time in that way.
It is so beyond its time. I completely agree. Like, I think that this is so shockingly beyond its time.
Yes.
In so many ways. And maybe that's just the territory of like being like a techno horror. Maybe it just all comes to, there's something very prophetic about the Twilight Zone. And I think in a way, maybe that's just what happens when you touch on subjects like this, where like it just can't help but come true. But like,
it's so great. And I actually wrote down the definition of liminal space because so much of the movie, the cinematography, the way that it was shot is just like back rooms. Like, and so liminal space, it says uncertain transition between where you've been and where you're going, and the precipice of something new and not quite there yet. That kind of goes with the emergence of the computer and the internet, the World Wide Web.
And just in this movie as a whole, I mean, people that people follow their little liminal space Instagrams and liminal space TikToks. And this, I feel like, is very truly liminal space heavy.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And another thing in this movie is like, so again, Tokyo is one of the most densely populated cities. And when you're watching this movie, you just don't see people on the train, in the bus, in the streets. Like, you hear some people sometimes, but it's very quiet. And that part itself is very unsettling.
And a lot of the times too, when you're in a big cities, like, you still feel very lonely, even though there's people all over you, like all over the place, around you all the time. It's still very lonely because you're not really like connecting with any of these people. They're just passing by.
Right. Yeah. I feel like that's like what a large portion of this movie is about. Like, I do also just want to note again, I really love the use of red in this movie. Like, there's so many scenes, just about every scene, it has an absence of a color because the color is concentrated in one spot, like with the color red. How, like, I even noticed, like, the spines in the library didn't seem to have much red in them. Like, it seemed like they pulled books with the color red out.
Wow.
So they wouldn't be there. You know what I mean? Like, they pull that color out of the background.
Just so that the red would hit harder.
It's so bright. Like, wow. And so, yeah. Oh, and I also do want to note that the director is also the writer of this movie. He did also write it. Props to Yuji Kasamura, who is the set decorator.
Wow, Yuji.
Perfect job.
Great job, dude. Really great job.
Junichiro Hayashi is the cinematographer. He was also the cinematographer for, wait for it, the Japanese original Ring.
Wow.
And as well as Dark Water.
Some great movies there.
Yeah, so he's got a real large body of work here with his cinematography.
When did The Ring come out?
98.
Okay. That was a little bit before this.
Yeah, so 2 years before this, which is also interesting because The Ring deals with videotape and this deals with like the dial-up internet. And another thing I was thinking was like, as time goes on, I feel like we kind of forget the shrouded mystery that like a lot of analog technology had.
Oh,
like,
yes.
Say like, when you listen to a cassette or a record and it goes into that part where there's nothing, it's kind of creepy and weird and unsettling. I don't know. It always unsettled me. Like, I'd be rushing to like, all right, I need a new sound now. I don't want to be listening to this dead space. It's creepy. And like, also, I think we, as a society, if ghosts are real, it seems like we accept that like either film or digital can pick up a ghost. We seem to accept that a camera could pick up a ghost even if the human eye can't. And it is interesting to think of the curses on technology in these movies and to apply it to even like the traditional idea of ghost hunting, where ghost hunters like use audio recorders to record ghost voices because they believe that the audio recorder can pick up a voice that a human ear can't hear. So like, I wonder in a way if the margin for error in our minds becomes lower with the more advanced the technology gets. because like the older technology did have a lot of room for error or like corruption in the file. You know what I mean? And then
yes, I
as
do.
it gets cleaner and more reliable,
Yeah.
does that make it more or less likely that we'll be picking up something spooky that could be a ghost? Like,
yeah. It's like now we have super high resolution pictures where it's like, okay, you can just zoom in all the way and see that this is photoshopped here.
And another thing I was thinking too is like, so the other day, I'm into vintage stuff, so I went to an estate sale, I got some towels, and the towels were kind of smelly, so there's a lot of things you can do about that to make them not smelly and make them nice enough to use. I know it sounds weird to anybody listening to this that's not a vintage person, but I am. So anyway, what you can do is you can soak them in vinegar. And this works for anything. If you have like smelly, like, I don't know, athletic wear or something at the gym or whatever. So yeah, socks. Use vinegar. It'll help remove like whatever funky smell. So I was soaking this in vinegar, and it used to be you could go to Google and you could Google, your material and how to clean it, and it would pull up 20 blogs of some nice person telling you with pictures how to clean something. And I fucking tried to look up how to clean a specific fabric. Every result that came up was useless to me.
Yeah. Was it like an ad?
Some sponsored ad. It was like eBay, Etsy. This sponsored ad. Like, there was no information. And I was just
my God.
I can't even Google something to figure something out anymore.
Yeah. More and more these days, it really feels like we're in like late stage endgame capitalism.
Especially with technology, how technology just seems to be like working against us and the internet is not.
Oh my God. And it listens to my therapy appointments. And it gives me ads based on my therapy appointments, and they are it's really bad.
So unsettling.
Like, we were talking about body dysmorphia, and then I started getting all these ads for these books that was just called like Fat Girl. I was like, I'm just like, I can't see this right now. I cannot see this right now. This is not good for me. But it's just like, buy this book based on this trauma I overheard you talking about. Like, no, I don't want a constant reminder of the things that I'm struggling with.
Oh God,
it's evil. I hate it.
It is evil.
We've got something worse than phantoms in our device, and it's just capitalism.
Haunted, but it feels haunted.
It's just capitalism, baby. It's worse than a phantom. It's worse than a curse.
That's true. It is very true. God.
Yeah. So I have a question for you to wrap this up.
Okay.
If you were on the computer and you got a mystery message that said, would you like to see a ghost? What would you do?
Well, is it present day or is it 20 years ago?
I'm going to say 20 years ago, because present day, that's not going to be a good click.
I would probably be really tempted to see a ghost, to be honest. And I think even back then I had the grip on, I don't want to get a computer virus, but I would be pretty tempted to see a ghost. So maybe I would click yes.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think I would. I think I would click yes.
And I think I would. Reservation.
I think I would click yes now too. I don't know.
All right. Thanks for listening to us.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. So we stopped recording, and usually when we stop recording, we just have a little chat after. So we were a couple seconds into our chat, and I just heard a dial-up noise. And I thought she was playing it on her end to just creep me out. And I said, "What are you doing?" I was like, why are you playing a dial-up noise? And I realized that earlier today, like, I had the tab for this movie open on Tubi. And for some reason, after we were done recording, I wasn't even in the tab, and it just started playing itself because it opens with a dial-up noise on the opening credits. And then that was pretty creepy. And then all of a sudden when I was talking, I just heard her cut out. I couldn't hear her anymore.
Yeah.
And my mic just, like, my headphones just muted themselves.
Yeah. And then you were like, Emily? And then I was like, Child, like, are you okay? And then your audio went mute. Like the sound bar just dropped off, and I'm like, oh my god, did she die? Did the ghost get
I
you?
think the ghosts got us.
Oh my god.
I mean, I'm okay for now, but that was very strange.
Oh,
I just
man.
can't believe I thought you were playing that to be funny, and you had no idea what I was talking about.
And we were just talking about like if we believed in ghosts and what kind of ghost experiences we've had. Dude, no. Is your house haunted? Like, be for real, because it looks
People
haunted.
say it is. Like, there's been many people that have lived here that, like, because he's had, like, roommates over the years.
Yeah.
And people claim it's haunted. The room I'm in, someone has claimed is haunted, but I've never had a single thing happen to me here.
Well, I don't know. Maybe something just happened to you.
I guess.
All right. Well.
All right, guys. Sorry, we just had to have story time.
Yeah. If anything happens to her, it's because of this.
Proof.
This is the proof.
Proof is there.
All right. Oh my god. Okay, hear me out. What if we're spreading ghosts to people with this recording?
Oh, what if it's like a tulpa because we're talking about it and now we're making it real?
Yes. And now we're transferring it to people. So if you're listening to that episode we just recorded, or this bonus snippet, watch your back, dude, because you're piggybacking off this curse now, and God knows what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Very, very creepy stuff, you guys.
Yeah. Good luck, everyone.
Good night. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Forever. May your DVDs never be scratched.
May your VCR never be hungry.
May the film reel never break.
Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for more.